Hi there, I'm Allie Kay. Welcome to my live paint along. I'm so happy that you have decided to join me today. I offer these live demos every Monday at 5 Eastern, and we paint a little something different every time. We like to work in series. So we just finished up a series of floral paintings, and now I'm so excited that we are starting a new series of landscapes and trees, and it's gonna be a blast. You guys asked for this, and so I'm gonna give you what you asked for. Hi Judy, thanks for joining. As you all are jumping in here and starting to watch the demo, please say hi in the comments and let everybody know where you are watching from around this world. We have people all over the place that watch these demos. Hi Bridget. I'm just kind of trying to follow all your comments. I know so many of you are joining us. So the way that we do this is I do this demo free for everybody to watch, but many of you like to paint right along with me. So I offer a download of the outlines. So these are the outlines for today. So you can find all the downloads on my website, Allie K Studio. It's a sheet that you can print. It has a list of all the paint colors that I'll be using, and then you can trace the paint, or you can trace the outlines onto your panel beforehand, so that you can be ready to paint right along with me. I see we have people in New Zealand, in the UK. Hello. Hi Debbie. Hi Amy in Indiana. Yes, awesome. Jean in New Jersey. Thank you all for joining me, and as you know, I'm very excited about this new series. So let's get down to it. Let's start painting. All right, we have Dawn in Sydney. Hi, Dawn. Dawn, the painting came today. I'll have to share it later, but you guys, Dawn painted a portrait of my little guy, Brecken, just from a photo that I posted out there, and I said, hey, somebody should paint this, and she did, and she mailed it to me, and she's amazing. It's beautiful. I'm very excited. I'm a very lucky art teacher. All right, well, let's start painting, okay? Let's do it. All right, so as I said, we've got the outlines. This is the reference image that we are going off of. And I'm going to bring you in a little closer. We've got a horizontal format here today. So we've been doing these landscape formats, and I decided to switch it up a little bit, do it sideways, just to kind of make it interesting. I thought that this would work well for the landscape style. So I just want to arrange my palettes here so that you can see my colors. I think you can see pretty well. We might want to tilt it a little bit so you can see a little more of the reference image. That looks pretty good. Yes, there we go. Hi, Elena. All right, you guys ready? Let's do it. Okay, so these outlines are on here. I painted over them using a skinny little script liner brush like this. And I mixed up a light purple from Payne's Gray, alizarin crimson, and white. So hopefully if you're painting with me, you have the same thing going on here. All right, so we've got those outlines in. And we are going to kind of start this in a similar way that we start all of our paintings, where we are going to start looking for the dark shadows. I just want to make sure that you all can see the reference image pretty well. Kind of have different lighting in here. I have my blinds open today, and I'm hoping that's not a distraction for you. I always feel like it's so dark when I've got the blinds closed, so hopefully y'all can see. Okay, looks pretty good. All right. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start finding the shadows like I mentioned. So we're going to make a dark purple using Payne's Gray and alizarin crimson. They're kind of about 50-50, and this tone is really not that important. It is just a wash. Oh, and I forgot to mention, as always, we are using golden fluid acrylics. And these are my favorite paints, although I know some of you might have Heavy Body from Golden, and that's okay. You can use those too, and the colors are the same. And if you just have, you know, some other brand of acrylics, you can still make this work. But I list the colors according to what Golden has. So, okay. And I'm using square tip brushes. These are Blick Essentials flat tip or square tip. This one's getting a little, you see it's getting a little split on me. I might need to get a different one. It's time to toss these. They don't last forever, but that's why I like to buy cheap brushes, because then I just toss them when they are not in great shape anymore. And that works out pretty well. Okay, we're gonna try number 3 here. I'll have new brushes next week. All right, so looking for the dark shapes. So it's definitely all pretty dark over here, right? We've got this all really dark, so I'm actually just going to wash all of this in. I don't want to make it so dark that I can't see my outlines, so make sure you can still see your outlines, but we're gonna start by toning all pretty dark over here. So I just noticed it looks like the comments have hung up for a minute there. I want to make sure I'm still seeing all your comments. Can somebody give me a shout out there and just say, hey, Allie, happy trees. Just so I can make sure that I'm still seeing your comments. I try to look back. I'm kind of going back and forth between my painting and checking at your questions. Okay, cool. Amy says hi. All right, good. All right, so again, we're just looking for these dark shapes, and I'm not going like right around all my outlines. Some of those outlines I will use those later to indicate the edges of the trees, but I'm just kind of looking for the main shapes right now. Just making a little bit more of my mixture with the alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. All right, I got a happy trees, cool. So I told you guys I've been studying up on my Bob Ross in preparation for this demo. I was watching clips on YouTube today while I was having lunch, and what I thought was very interesting is he didn't ever paint from a reference image. I think he just was like making them up, or making his paintings up as he went along. I mean, I'm sure he knew what he was doing, but I thought that was pretty amazing that he actually wasn't going off of a reference image. I need a reference image. I don't know about you guys. All right. So this line right here is the edge of the river. So I'm going to put it dark above that line to indicate that highlight. And I'm going to pick up that highlight comes right over here on the other side of this little happy tree here. It's just, that's going to help us find our horizon. We don't want to lose that. Okay, and now the branches of this tree are darker than the background. And it's kind of tricky right here because this tree is dark, but then the background is also dark. And there's kind of like a little halo around it. So I'm gonna make my purple tone a little bit darker for right now, just to separate this tree from the background so that we can see the difference there. Because we don't want to lose it. That's the thing about painting these trees and landscapes, is sometimes it's a little bit easy to get lost. I don't want that to happen to you. So we want to try to separate these forms early when we're just doing the underpainting. I'm going to push this a little bit darker here. This is all called the underpainting stage, and we're not worrying about color. We're just looking at value right now. And you'll notice I left these kind of windows of light here in this large mass because on the reference image, you can see a very faint indication of highlight where there's two short trees here. So I just wanted to leave kind of where that highlight is. And I'll show where these trees are a little bit more later on. Yeah, Amy said Bob Ross painted the same painting several times. That was another thing I noticed about him, is it said that he would do the whole painting before the demo, and then he would do the demo, and then he would do it again afterwards, like for his, I don't know, VHS tapes or something that he put out there. So I have actually done that before, not for too many paint-alongs. I think maybe for one or two of them I pre-painted to make sure I knew what I was doing. Most of the time, guys, I'm just winging it. Sorry. It is what it is. I do think a lot about, you know, maybe doing a trial run for a lot of these, but a lot of the time I kind of get more excited for it to just be like in the moment and not exactly know what it's going to look like. So I'm leaving this kind of halo here to separate that tree. Do you guys see where I'm doing that? I just want to be able to keep track of where that tree is. So I kind of wonder, when Bob Ross was doing these demo paintings ahead of time, I wonder if he had that like somewhere off stage and he was actually looking at it, but just kind of pretending like he was making up where he was putting his happy trees, but maybe he really knew and he was just going off of his reference image. And I'm kind of thinking that's more, or he was going off of his earlier painting. I kind of feel like that would make more sense. He was pretty smart. All right. Okay, so we've pretty much got, oh, it's pretty dark down here. So I'm gonna do some sideways strokes to show that this is some water here. And I'm gonna push the edges of this massive trees a little bit darker to separate it from those trees in the distance. So when we're doing these landscapes, that is what we are going to really focus on, is atmospheric perspective. And that is that means that the things in the far distance are going to be lighter and be less detailed than the things in the foreground. And that's something Bob did a lot. And that's what's going to push these trees that are in the back here, that's pushing them back because we're leaving those really light. Now I'm just going back with more alizarin crimson and Payne's gray, and I'm having less water in it now to make a darker color. And I'm gonna push this a little bit darker here, just looking for the areas that are the very darkest. My poor iPad is getting covered in paint because I'm so hard on it. We're kind of gonna push these little tips of these trees here. Oh, actually this tree goes all the way up. I'm gonna cut around it there, show where it is. There we go. Okay. So I'm not doing like any individual branches. I'm just looking for large areas of dark. Push this a little darker. And gradually we're kind of chipping away at some of these outlines that were here. We've got a lot of windows of light piercing through these upper branches. So we'll be kind of pulling some more of those out later. Okay, so I think maybe we'll push this a little darker on each side of this trunk to make this trunk really stand out. And then I think it's going to be time for us to do that complementary color underpainting like I always do. And it's going to be the same sort of thing for landscapes. It's just going to look a little bit different. Okay, so as always, we want this first layer to be dry. Because when we wash over it, we don't want these dark purple tones to blend in. So I'm, again, just scooping up any wet areas that I still have to get those to dry up a little bit faster. This is always a good time to ask me some questions if you have any, because I mean, this paint does dry super fast, but I've probably got a few seconds here before I can put the underpainting wash in, that I can look at your questions here. So the image, the reference image is actually one that I got on Unsplash, and I need to post the photographer so I can give that person credit, because Unsplash is a free photography website, but it's always nice to share, so I will do that. And then I edited it, I put a filter on it in PixArt and another filter in Photoshop, and did some other enhancing of the color to kind of bring out these shapes and colors a little bit more, because a lot of times with landscapes, they can be kind of all one color, especially like trees and forests. So you kind of have to push it. Let's see, John is asking what type of brush. So I'm using all different numbers really. I think I was using a number 3, and these are Blick Essentials flat tip brushes. They come in like a 12 pack, and it's a good deal. The 12 pack is like $13. But I need to throw these away and get some new ones. I also got this one recently because I wanted a really nice crisp one. And this is silver, I don't know, I can't read this one. I don't know, this is another pretty decent one, but it's already starting to split a little bit. Okay, I think we're ready to do our wash. So let's start with the wash up in the sky, because I don't have any paint up there. And the sky in the reference image actually has kind of a warm peachy tone. So for my opposite color for that, I'm going to do phthalo blue. You guys know I like phthalo blue a lot, especially as an underpainting. So I'm gonna grab a big brush now, and I'm going to make myself a little puddle of phthalo blue. It's a super strong color. And I'm just gonna wash that in really thin, because the sky is very light. So we always want the value of the underpainting to kind of match the value of what the top layer will be. So if it's going to be very light in that area, we put the underpainting in very light. So this is a very thin wash. I like hardly touched it because it's such a strong color. All right, so there's the blue underpainting. Let's see, Amy says, could we paint a little oil after these dry? Yeah, totally, Amy. Actually, when I do oil paintings, I usually start with an acrylic base. And true oil painters would hate me for saying that. And probably Bob Ross would probably not like me saying that either. But I always put acrylic down first because it dries fast, and then you can just layer your oils on top. So that's what I do. Okay, so the underpainting for the rest of it, I think underneath this mass of pine trees here, I'm going to do Quinacridone Magenta. So that is a really fun color from Golden, and I'm just going to wash over. Oops, I contaminated mine a little bit. I need to pick a new spot. I'm just gonna wash over everything with this intense magenta color. It's one of my favorite colors for an underpainting. So basically we're calling these trees like a green tone, and so opposite of green would be red, so that's why I'm getting away with putting this magenta, which is more of a purple, but it kind of works as red too. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm using my big number 8 brush now. And these little panels are 8 inches by 10 inches. If anybody's wondering, if you want to get the download, you can still grab that on my website, allykstudio.com. And then these demos are always available as a replay. So you can watch it either here on my Facebook page, or you can watch it on my YouTube channel. It gets posted there on Tuesdays. So either one. Okay, so we've got magenta for all of our dark green trees. Now I think for the rest of it, I'm going to do my burnt orange color. So the recipe that I liked for burnt orange is alizarin crimson. I call it my burnt orange. This is my burnt orange, guys. Alizarin crimson and Hansa yellow opaque is my burnt orange recipe. And this is a really nice color for underneath any like greenery or foliage. I use it a lot. So this is gonna go down where we've got the blue for the stream going through here, and pretty much everything else we're just gonna wash in with this. So we wanna have some color everywhere. I love seeing how many of you did all of the floral paint-alongs, and you guys are starting to kind of group them together and take photos of them, and it's pretty neat to see them as a collection. That's one piece of advice I would give when you are learning to paint, is painting in a series really helps, because it allows you to kind of learn from one painting, and you know, you figure things out that you do or don't want to do for the next painting. So I think it's really helpful. Okay, so now we've got all of our underpainting in here, and now we're going to kind of move on to the next step in our process here. And I think it's going to be to start putting some of the darker shadows in, because we've got some really dark areas, and so I'm gonna start pushing those dark first. This is kind of different from the floral ones where I would start like pulling out the highlights on the petals right away. I think with this piece, it's going to be important to kind of get those real dark areas in first. So I'm going to mix up a dark tone, and I'm going to use, let's see, I'm going to use phthalo green, and I need to find a clean spot on my palette. I was doing another painting earlier today, and so my palette isn't totally dry, and I never clean my palette. Okay, I'm gonna use phthalo green and alizarin crimson to make this nice dark color. And this will be just about black. And at this next phase, I'm not gonna water my paints down anymore. I'm going to thin them with Glaze. And I always tell you, I'm not picky about Glaze. I'm using Liquitex Matte Medium, but you could use Golden's medium. You could use any brand. This is just what I am using today. So I'm gonna thin this a little bit with some Glaze, which is going to allow some of this underpainting to kind of pop through. And that'll look nice. So let's find the darkest area. So it's pretty much the darkest, like right here. And as I'm starting to put this in, I'm going to be very careful to leave little bits of my magenta, especially around the edges. I like to do that. But we want to leave little windows of it popping through, because that's why we put the underpainting down. Hopefully this dark color isn't going to be too much of a glare for you. Well, it looks pretty good. Maybe. I'm gonna adjust a light real quick here because I think this is a little bit too glaring on the blue for you. Let's see if we can tone that down a little bit. Maybe that's a little better. Hard to say. I don't quite have Bob Ross's studio lighting set up. Okay. So it's pretty dark in here. Pretty dark right here. You see how I'm just like, if it's a big area, I'm just laying down a big fat brush stroke. We don't want to have all these little bitty hash brush strokes. Just lay it down and don't think too much about it. Okay. And that's probably all of the super dark, because as we get up here, this dark is not quite so dark. Maybe there's one little bit here, but see how the light is piercing in through here? So then there's kind of this halo effect around where the sun is coming in. So that is making the trees lighter in those areas. Bridget's asking, what is the dark you're using on the trees? Bridget, it is alizarin crimson and phthalo green blue shade. That's what I made this dark with, and it's like pretty much almost black. Okay, we've got a few little dark pieces down at the bottom of this tree that we'll bury in there. Okay. Now I'm going to lighten it up a pinch and fill in more of these trees that are in the foreground. So I'm going to add just a tiny speck of white to it. So then it's going to be phthalo green, white, and alizarin crimson. We're gonna need a little more alizarin crimson, and then I'm still adding a little bit of that matte medium glaze in there. Chris is asking what glaze. Yeah, it's Liquitex Matte Medium, Chris. But again, I'm not picky about the glaze, so use whatever you have. I just like a matte finish because I don't like it to be super shiny. So just the tiniest bit of white in this next layer. And we'll start, oh, I need to make it a little bit lighter because this is almost exactly the same color. We want it to be a notch lighter than what we had. Okay. That's maybe working. We'll see. Okay. And I'm going to stay away from this area where the light is coming through because it really does get a lot lighter there. This will kind of indicate those two little short trees that I mentioned where we had a little highlight. So I'm just gonna very softly drop those in. There's really not a whole lot of definition on these. They're just barely indicated that they're there. Again, this recipe that I have here is phthalo green blue shade, alizarin crimson, and white. That is the green that I'm using right now. So just looking for large masses of dark. Okay, and this tree has some of these same colors. So we're building up these dark areas and then we'll start dropping in the light, and that's really when it's going to start to come to life. But we need to have this base built up first, and then we can start kind of having that light pierce its way through onto these around these trees. And probably the biggest piece of advice I can give with painting trees is to not get too detailed. Less is always more. You don't need to have every little detail of the tree branch because then it starts to just kind of ruin it. It starts to make it look fake. Oh, that's too light over there. I'm gonna avoid that. I already said that and then I went and did it. Okay, so I see some of this same dark color down towards the horizon here where the grass is meeting the shadow there. So I'm gonna drop a little bit of the same color in here, but still leaving some little windows of that orange, that burnt orange coming through. Got a little bit of the horizon over there, maybe right there, and then it does start to get lighter. Let's see, Amy says you have to have dark to show light. That's right, Amy. You are correct. So we have to build up these darks and then we can drop our lights on top of them. If you do the lights first and then you're trying to like paint the shadows around the lights, it just makes more work for yourself. So I'm all about doing it the easier way. All right, so let's put this nice kind of blue that's in the background, because once we get that in, that's going to be a good anchor for these trees and the edges around them. So we're going to make this blue tone. Let's see, how are we going to do it? We're going to do it using Payne's Gray and some white. Payne's Gray is like a nice navy blue. It's a color I use a lot. And we're gonna put a little bit of phthalo green in there to make it kind of like a teal tone. And then I'm gonna put some glaze in there. I think I like that color. Okay, so it's Payne's Gray, phthalo green, white, and some glaze. All right, so we're gonna drop this into the background, leaving that halo of the orange kind of wrapping around a lot of what we've done here. And put this in. Do you see how I'm changing the direction of my brush strokes? You don't want to get too mechanical, like hash, hash, hash. You really want it to be fluid, but then also you don't want it to feel like you're trying too hard to change the directions of your brush strokes. And all I can say about that is it's just kind of something that comes with experience, letting it feel natural and not like you're really trying hard. So again, this recipe is Payne's Gray, phthalo green, blue shade, and white. And I'm actually gonna use it for the trunk up here. We're just gonna put a little bit of that trunk in with this color too, because I like to kind of reflect that color around. And we've got some bits of the tree that are kind of dark up here that I'm gonna put in with that color too. It's already on my brush, making it easy. Put a little in right there. Okay, now I want to make it lighter because up here towards the edge, it's definitely getting lighter. So I'm going to add a little more white to the same recipe of Payne's Gray, phthalo green, and white. Just add a little bit more white to it. Added a little bit more glaze in there too. I'm still using my number 5 brush. It's pretty big, but we don't really need a detailed brush right now. So we're gonna get these trees that are in the background, and if you can see your little outlines, this is kind of a good time to kind of chip away at those so we don't see those. We don't want to see those in the end. We want it to be nice and soft. And I'm going to use some of this lighter blue down here for the water. I probably should have put some of the darker blue in while I still had it before I put white in there, but we'll put a different color of dark blue in because the lower left side here of this little stream is definitely darker, but we'll get that in later. So when I'm doing the water, I'm doing my brush strokes this way, always this way, because you don't want your water to feel all wild and like furry. You want it to feel like it's flowing and laying down. Okay, so we got that in. All right, now let's put in this mass of green here. And it's really bright green right here along the edge. So I think I'm actually gonna put that in first. And it's a very intense bright green. It's gonna be mostly yellow and white actually. So we're gonna make that using Hansa Yellow, Opaque, and white. And then we're just gonna put the tiniest little bit of phthalo green, like hardly even touch it with the edge of your brush. If you even look at your phthalo green, it's going to turn the color of this green very green. And we want it to be mostly yellow. So we're gonna put that in. I need to add even more yellow because my green took over. Put a little bit of glaze in there. And this is gonna feel super bright, but in the painting it's super bright, so it's okay. So we're gonna drop this incredibly bright green in right there. A little bit right there, and There it is. Now over here, it's more in shadow, so we're gonna have to tone that down, but I wanted to get like this super green in first. Okay. And actually the green up here on the tree is not this bright. It's a little bit more toned down. So for the one up on the tree, actually let's do this one first. We're gonna add a little bit of Payne's Gray to it to tone it down. So same recipe, just, oh, I accidentally did phthalo green. Shoot, okay. We're gonna add a little bit of Payne's Gray. I'll just do it over here. So this is gonna make it a little softer. So now this has Hansa Yellow, phthalo green, white, and Payne's Gray in there. There we go. Okay. Now, like I mentioned, this green of this tree has a little bit more yellow, and it's actually a little bit more browned out. So I'm just gonna use the same puddle that I've got going here that has the Payne's Gray, Hansa Yellow, phthalo green, and white. But I'm going to add a tiny bit of Pyrrole Red in there to mute it out, and then I'm gonna put some more yellow in. So it's gonna give us a little bit of a warmer, yellowy green. Put a little more white in there. And then we'll just kind of dance some of this color in here. I should probably switch to a smaller brush, but it's okay. Bobby used a big brush. I can use a big brush. So we don't want to put these little highlights everywhere. I'm just looking to see where I see these brightest highlights in the reference image. And I'm kind of using like the tip of my brush so that I can get a smaller section of it. Squinting to see where the highlights are. Okay, I think that's enough right there. Janet said, did you use gesso on this panel? Yep, Janet, I always gesso the panels first. So I just use white acrylic gesso on my wood panels first. All right, so let's put this warm peach color in the background. So we want to make that using white, Pyrrole Red light, and a tiny speck of Hansa Yellow opaque. So again, that is going to be white, a little bit of Pyrrole Red light, a little bit of Hansa Yellow. Make sure you don't get any of the green in there. I'm gonna get some more white that's not contaminated. So it's gonna be mostly the white and just a little bit of that Pyrrole Red light. My glaze is kind of contaminated. It had some of the blues in there, so I just grabbed some more glaze. When you do these really bright colors, you want to make sure that they're not contaminated at all, because the tiniest bit of the opposite color will kind of ruin it. So we're gonna drop some of this peachy tone in here. Still leaving a lot of my blue showing through. And horizons always get lighter, skies always get lighter towards the horizon. So down towards the bottom, I'm gonna have more white. And then up at the top, I'm gonna make it a little bit darker. And the fun thing about painting trees is really just painting the light in between the trees. That's my favorite. Because that's really what we notice the most, more so than the actual tree branches themselves. So up towards the top, and I noticed in the video here, you all can't see that there is some kind of orangey peach tone because unfortunately the screen is reflecting and it all looks white. But if you have the reference image, if you got the download, you'll be able to see that towards the top here, it has more of a orangey tone to it. So like I said, I'm gonna make it a little bit darker. I'm gonna take a little more Pyrrole Red and a little bit more of the Hansa Yellow and mix those two together to make kind of this nice warmer peach. And I'm even gonna push it a little bit, I think. Yeah, just because I kind of like having a little more color in there. So I'm making my peach a little bit more peach than what I even see because I want to. There we go. Okay, I don't want to cover up too much of my blue. Actually, I already did. I wish I didn't do that one stroke there. Okay. All right, moving on. Now we're going to start kind of showing this light piercing through right here. So I'm finally going to switch down to a smaller brush now. I'm not going to use my 5 anymore. I think I'll go down to my, let's see, this is a 1. Okay, so I'm going to put that very brightest window of highlighted right there. And this is almost completely white. It's just going to have a little tiny speck of that Pyrrole Red and Hansa Yellow opaque. I'm going to find where that piercing light is coming through. That's the very brightest spot right there. And it's also pretty bright, kind of wrapping around these trees. So we're just painting the hollows between the branches instead of actually painting the branches. Oh, I've got this little massive branches here that I actually got rid of. Maybe I can, oops, drop my brush. Maybe I can bring that back. I'll just paint over it when that dries. Okay, got another little hollow up here, a little bit right there. So again, this is almost completely white. It's just got a little bit of Pyrrole Red light and Hansa Yellow opaque. And we're just kind of carving out these little windows of light that are showing up around the tree branches. We don't want to do these just too perfectly. We want it to feel very random, changing the directions. Doesn't matter if you have the same number of trees as what's in the image. None of that matters. Nobody's going to count them. Okay, so now as we wrap around this very brightest area, which is right here, I'm going to add more of the Hansa Yellow and Pyrrole Red. So we want to make more of like a tangerine orange. So Pyrrole Red, Hansa Yellow, and white still, but more of the Hansa Yellow and Pyrrole Red. Because we've got this little halo. So the little windows between the branches are getting more orangey looking. And we got a few here. Got some little windows right here between these little trees. And we're not putting every little window in either. We're just kind of picking the most important ones that we want to include, and we're wrapping around. And this is going to be kind of a push and pull. So right now we're putting the light in, but then we'll probably end up pulling some of the trees back out with some more dark color. So it's going to go back and forth a little bit. Before I spend too much time there, I'm going to kind of move my way around here and put some of this orangey tone over here. I kind of see it wrapping around this tree. And we've got some in the distance here too, kind of wrapping around this one. So I like to let my colors kind of bounce all over the place. We've got some bright orangey tones on this tree here. We're just gonna have fun with it. Put this color everywhere. Well, not everywhere. Don't do it everywhere, but colors do bounce. We're gonna use it for the highlight along the edge of this trunk too. I'm gonna put that in right there. Oh, and then we've got this really strong highlight where the water is that we'll put in with this same peachy color. We'll probably make it more white later, but we're just going to find it right now with this peach color. Okay. All right. Now, I think the next thing I want to do is to kind of put this highlight that dances around this tree right here. And it's kind of like a cool blue tone that we're going to use to pull this tree out. So I'm going to make it with, let's see, phthalo blue and white. And let's see, what else are we gonna do? Maybe a little bit of phthalo green, so it's gonna be kind of like a teal. A little more phthalo blue. I'm going back to the phthalo blue. I didn't like all that teal. Okay. And we'll put some glaze in there. And we're gonna use this to kind of shape up where this tree is. I'm gonna start with it a little bit darker, and then I'm probably gonna go a little bit lighter. And actually we've got the same color kind of bouncing around the edge of this tree. I should probably not paint my iPad. So those of you that use your iPad to paint from, I know I talk about doing that a lot, that you should always paint from a screen. I don't know if anybody else has done this, but you know how you can like zoom in on your iPad? On several occasions, I have tried to zoom in on my painting. I probably shouldn't have shared that with the world, but I've done it. There it is. Pretty funny. Just kind of lose track of what you're doing. All right. Got a nice little halo around this tree. Looks like this tree comes in a little bit more right there. I'm gonna put a little bit of this bright teal in the water down here. Remember to do the brush stroke sideways. And we've got a little bit of it popping over here in between the branches of this tree. Okay, now I'm gonna add more white to it to lighten it up a little bit to this teal color. So we're gonna go in, add a little more light white to lighten it. You know what though, I didn't really like that phthalo green in there, so I'm actually gonna pick a new spot on my palette and I'm gonna do just white and phthalo blue. That's what I'm gonna do for this new highlight color. Just white and phthalo blue. Okay, and I see some of the brightest areas, yeah, I like that better, around this tree. And this tree is really kind of our focal point, so I'm gonna spend a little bit more time kind of indicating this tree more so than the others. You just kind of pick what is the most important thing that you wanna show, and then, you know, use your time for that. So this is just phthalo blue and white here. I'm not gonna go all the way down because it does get a little darker there. We've got a couple little bits of it along this edge of this tree. And then this bright tone we see in the water. Especially down here, and that kind of just draws our eye down to show that that water keeps going. I'm gonna put some of this into the background up here. Okay. All right, I want to push the highlights on this tree because I feel like they aren't really jumping out at me as much now. So we're going to emphasize those green highlights. So we're gonna make that yellowy green with some more white in it to just make it really jump out a little bit more. So we're gonna make that color again using Hansa Yellow Opaque, white, the tiniest little speck of phthalo green, almost none at all. And then we're gonna put some pyrrole red in there to make it not so intense. And we're gonna add more white to it because we really want that to stand out. So this is kind of like a yellowy olive green that's gonna be pretty bright. And yeah, and I'm gonna put this on pretty opaque because I want this to really stand out against our background. Getting our happy trees in there. All right, you don't want to do it too many places or it will lose its intensity. And I'm going to put a little bit of it in the distance over here, maybe a little bit over here just to kind of mirror it. Okay, now this bright highlight that's cutting across, that light coming through, it needs to be much brighter. And we're actually gonna go in and put this part almost completely white where it's hitting the water, because right now I don't really see that being separated as much. So I really wanna pull out the water in that spot. So I'm actually gonna go in with just straight white and just dab that little bit of water in there. And I'm just gonna pick it up on the other side too, just to show that that's where the water is. Okay, I like that. I noticed that the bottom of this tree trunk I never really put in. So I'm going to go back to that dark green that I had made, the one where I added a little bit of white to it. And I'm just gonna shape up that tree trunk. Oh, it was still a little bit wet there. So I made this dark green using Payne's Gray, phthalo green, and white if you need to make more of it. Payne's Gray, phthalo green, and white, I believe. Or maybe I had alizarin crimson in there now that I think about it. It was alizarin crimson and phthalo green and white. That's what it was. Either one will work fine. Just want to get the shape up that trunk a little bit more. And I'll continue that. And maybe I'll use this for a little bit more detail and up towards the top here. Kind of getting to that point where we want to start doing a little bit more detail around a few places, not all of them. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop those into the comments here. I'm just looking at our time. Oh, we're getting pretty close to the end of the demo. You guys know I always go over like 5 or 10 minutes just because, but we're getting there. So I'm using this recipe, this darker recipe, to kind of shape up a little bit more. And I'm gonna add a little bit more white to it to lighten it a pinch more, and then I'm gonna use that to add a little bit more detail around the tops of these. So it's phthalo green, alizarin crimson, and white. That was what I meant to say earlier and I didn't. And I'm just gonna add a little bit more white here. And we want to really kind of show off how that's the sun coming through. So that's why the tree branches are getting a little bit lighter around them because the sun is kind of piercing through them. Like I said, it's kind of this push and pull. So I put the little windows of the light coming through, and now I'm doing more of the actual branches, and then I'll probably pull the light back through again. And we've got these little highlights on these trees in the front here. I think we'll drop those in. And put a little more phthalo green in there. Kind of show those off a little bit more. Need to make it a little bit darker. I'm going to add more phthalo green and more alizarin crimson to make this a little bit darker, because I don't want this to stand out quite so much. Ooh, don't want to lose it. Getting to the end, we don't want it to fall over now. We've got another little happy tree right here that we're gonna kind of show off, show everybody where it is. Just kind of catching the light at the edges here. And we've got some light coming down on this one. Well, I've got this brush going. I'm just gonna use it to kind of add a few more little branches coming off of this one. So you see, I just like to jump around and kind of use my paint where I need it. If I happen to see that color somewhere else, I just go in and drop it in there. And that's why I think the paintings have a lot of unity, because you see the same colors kind of bouncing all around them. Thank you, Elena. All right. Keeping it moving. Okay, I think I'm finally going, well, I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow to this green actually to make it a little bit more of a green. Just a tiny bit. I'm gonna put some glaze in there too. And I need to dull that down with a little bit of alizarin crimson. And I feel like there's a warmer green that's kind of coming in along the side of this tree. So just to give this tree a little bit more definition, I'm gonna wrap this warmer green around this one. And we've got some of that going on in this one too. Some of this warmer green. I do feel like this one's starting to turn the corner. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like all my paintings kind of go through like this awkward teenager phase, and you just gotta push through. Don't ever throw your paintings away when you feel like there's no hope. There's always hope. You just gotta keep going. And I have to keep going because you guys are watching me. Oh, Elena says purples. Yeah, I guess we do have that kind of purple halo in the background. Let's do that. That's a good idea. Thanks for being here, Elena, and adding your ideas. Yeah, let's make a purple in there. So let's put kind of that fun purple color in. We will do that using, let's see, we're gonna do that using this permanent dark violet and a little bit of white and some phthalo blue green shade. So that's gonna make it more of a blued out purple. I'm gonna put some glaze in there. And this is kind of your choice if you want to add this in or not, but I do think it'll be fun. It'll contrast all these cool colors, having this kind of pop of purple in here. So let's put this into the background. Just a few places. Less is more with this, but I think this is cool. I'm glad you noticed that, Elena. Yeah. Put a little bit over on this side of the tree. And it gets lighter as we go up, so I'm gonna add a little bit more white, and maybe I'll put a little bit of Quinacridone Magenta in there, make it a little bit more pinky. Yeah, I like that. So I added a little Quinacridone Magenta to make it a warmer purple, and I do see some of that kind of up here. Yes, I like it. And this is one of those colors that we would have probably never actually saw had we not put a filter on the photo, which is why I like to put filters on photos, because it's like the color is actually there, we just, our eyes didn't see it. but there must have been a reason why it ended up there. Yeah, I like it. Let's put a little of this purple over here too. I like this purple. That is fun. It's coming together, and that purple made the halo of green around this tree really stand out a lot more. It definitely did. I just noticed this tree needs a little bit more content. I'm just gonna go back at that same green color and give it a few more little bitty branches up here towards the top. Like I said, this is kind of our focal point tree. I don't love how the top of it isn't a straight point, so I'm gonna make mine a straight point. I don't like how it like splits. It feels a little awkward. Like it's not the perfect Christmas tree. Okay, I like that. I would like to make this pass of the bright green on the ground feel even brighter. So I'm gonna get my brush nice and clean, and I'm going to get that little highlight in there. So I'm gonna pick a totally clean spot on my palette. I'm gonna grab some clean white and some clean yellow, which I'm gonna have to get new yellow. So white, hands to yellow, and then again, just the itty bitty little dab of phthalo green. And maybe some more white. We're gonna put that bright lime green in there. Yeah, there it is. We really want that to glow. It feels like it's glowing. I like it. And I don't see it up here, but I think just for the fun of it, I'm gonna put a tiny bit on these branches too. Thank you everyone who's saying it looks amazing. I appreciate it. I'm having fun with this one. It's been fun to switch to landscapes, and we have more coming, so stay tuned. I just picked out what we're gonna paint next week, and I'm pretty excited. So it should be available for the download tomorrow, I think, on my website. What time is it? 6:02. Okay, so let me just look at the last couple of things. I still feel like I want to make this glow a tiny bit more up in this corner. I feel like I see some kind of orangey reds that are not happening in our painting right now. So I want to find those, and so I'm going to do Pyrrole Red, Light, and White, and actually just those two colors, which is going to be more of like a pink, but I think that's going to work. Well, I take it back. We're going to put a little bit of yellow in there. I just really want it to be pop. I want it to be more of a bright orangey color. There we go. So I'm going to use this as kind of some detail around these branches here, where we've got this bright orange light piercing in from behind. We want to make all these, we want to make sure that these little windows are not all like the same size and shape. We want to keep it random. That is the biggest tip that I can give you when painting landscapes. Keep it random. And less detail is usually better. Also, when things get further away, they get lighter. So there are all of my tips. That's all I know. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Robin. Everybody, you guys are great. We are just about done here. Oh, there's a little bit of this orange kind of coming in around here. There it is. add an extra window. I don't see it right here, but I feel like I want to break up this mass a little bit. So I'm dropping it in there even though I don't see it. Okay, now I'm going to add more white to this and just really brighten up that area, and then we're going to be done with this demo. Okay, get this very bright area. So this is still just white, pyrrole red light, Hansa yellow opaque. Those are the colors I'm still working with right here. Not really putting these little windows of light in the exact same places that I see them in the image, which you've probably already noticed. But I'm just kind of getting like the overall feel of like, here's where there are more little hollows and here's where there are less, and kind of imitating that. Clean up a few of these little distant trees here. All right. I think we will call this one finished. Kathy says, can't wait to do it with your granddaughter. Oh, Kathy, I love seeing the ones you do with your granddaughter. Please share that. I love that so many of you are making this like a family activity and kind of sharing this with other people. That makes me really happy. All right, well, that will do it for this demo, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I forgot to ask during the demo, but if you would please share this, I would really, really appreciate it. Helps me out so much, and it helps other people to kind of discover these paint-alongs, and you know, maybe they would enjoy doing it too. So please share this, and I would love to see your paintings. Make sure you post them in the group Allie's Paint Friends. If you're not in Allie's Paint Friends, you need to get in Allie's Paint Friends. It's a free group that I have here on Facebook, but that's where everybody posts their paint-alongs and other pieces that they've done that are inspired by my instruction and courses. So it's fun to see what everybody's doing. And again, you can get the download on my website, Allie K Studio. You guys have a great night, and next week's paint-along download will be available tomorrow afternoon. So, all right, take care, everybody. Bye.